So how does the drug trafficking tie into this? Because what you've said in that right now just kind of describes like money laundering, but there's also drugs.
Right. So this comes back to these underground banks, which, it's not limited, of course, to mainland China citizens. We see this ancient form of banking. It's known as Hawala in the Middle East. It exists in many cultures, but it's a huge form of underground banking and finance in China because, as my hosts know, that there's a big distrust of the government in there among citizens of China, and the people that control them, the authoritarians. There's distrust there. So people are very used to hiding their assets or the fear that they'll be taken away willy-nilly. So the underground banking, the Chinese citizens, whether they're a corrupt official, a drug trafficker, or a computer programmer, for them to get some security outside China, they must use that organized crime bank. Those banks are built on decades of heroin wealth. This is organized crime at a very, deep and powerful level. And it's run essentially through family banks, or, at a high level, you could compare them to mafia banks in other cultures. It's very family related. So the bank in Wuhan is related to the bank in Richmond. On both sides, it's drug money, deep, deep, deep pockets of criminal money. But that what could be legitimate money in China that needs to get out is facilitated by the drug banks. So you put the credit down in China, you arrive in Richmond, and you're getting paid out with cash drug money. You have to have professionals that will launder that money. You have to have the casinos that will look the other way, the real estate industry that will look the other way. But that money is going on a loop back to China to fund more drug imports. That's where that opium war in reverse comes in. So really the drug money, I call it, it's almost like it's fluid. It's a leverage to get money of all types around the world moving, and it facilitates the shipment of drugs around the world.
Just for some broader context for our audience, we talk a lot on the show about the Chinese Communist Party's unrestricted warfare, that the Communist Party considers itself at war with the West. And drug warfare is a big aspect of this. And it's funny because last week we had on the show Rosemary Gibson, who wrote a book called China RX. And she was mentioning that, while all of this Chinese fentanyl is winding up in the United States, I don't know what the fentanyl situation is in Canada off the top of my head. But so while there's this opioid epidemic being fueled by Chinese drugs, at the same time, China controls a lot of the global medical supply chain and has been cutting back on the amount of medicine that you give people having overdoses. They've been cutting back on that. So you kind of see like this multifaceted drug warfare that you can't really, like as you were saying earlier, it's hard for us to imagine that our governments would be doing something like this. So how could the Chinese government be doing something like that? But the reality is, this is warfare.
At some level, I have seen enough to judge that through omission of enforcement, through corruption, that is, officials that regulate and could shut the fentanyl precursor factories down at a moment's notice if they wanted to, but are making so much money from the pharmaceutical industry. And through corruption, we know some of them are making so much money from the illicit fentanyl industry. It doesn't matter. All of those channels are profitable to China. So if they were good faith partners with, Western governments, if they weren't involved in something, whether you call it gray zone conflict, asymmetric war, unrestricted war, people are comfortable with different levels of terminology. But what is occurring and what cannot be denied is there's a conflict that is below armed conflict, but there are strategic elements to it. I'm one that I don't always judge that the people over in Beijing have everything all figured out. They make mistakes. There's so many actors involved, many self-interested, that it would be hard to see just a computer level efficiency to this gray zone or asymmetric warfare. But it's occurring. And again, I come back to the point of what I call sort of my more aggressive sort of intelligence analyst sources do say, if Hezbollah wants to harm the West using drugs, it's not a huge leap to judge that some in China may as well.
And now you also mentioned this, which is just, it's like you pulled a thread and so many things came unraveled. This also ties into the what's happening with the real estate market in Vancouver, driving up the housing prices. And I imagine that's making a lot of residents there upset.
It is. And you said that you're not exactly sure what the fentanyl situation is in Canada. I can tell you that compared to West Virginia, Vancouver is the second highest level of harm in North America. I used to report from the epicenter. That's the downtown, the east side in Vancouver. Again, as a Canadian, I would never have thought that I could see such a place with such literally war zone type conditions of addicts so devastated by heroin and fentanyl. And yes, in the book, I found that, look, Chinese transnational cartels have a very strong base of operations, especially in cities like Vancouver and Toronto. They're making so much money. This underground banking that I'm describing that both facilitates a huge flow of money from China, some of it legitimate, some of it illegitimate, but all mixed in with organized crime underground banking. That money is just bursting to the surface in Vancouver. So the illicit money is mixing in with the licit, the banks, the casinos. I'm not going to call them licit. They've proven themselves to be illicit businesses. Currency exchanges are entirely corrupted in some areas of Vancouver. And this has to have a major effect on Vancouver real estate prices. My example or my data point here is this has led through some of my reporting to a commission of inquiry into money laundering in BC, led by a BC high-level judge. And in his interim report, he said, money laundering is a huge problem in Vancouver. It's tearing the fabric of democracy and society. We haven't heard his final report yet, but what I judge from that, because I reported on these issues, is hot money, when it comes in large volumes into a city, it chases out good money. It raises the real estate prices. And so the businesses, the good businesses, the citizens that are working hard to pay taxes, save for their children's university, they're being pushed out of the center of this, what we have to call a narco hub city. And that people are up in arms, and they should be about that.
You wouldn't really think of Vancouver as a narco hub city.
You wouldn't. There's so many ironies and mind-blowing findings for me in the process of reporting this book. And it's true. I had to go back and look at how what we call the tycoons of Hong Kong started to buy large portions of Vancouver real estate in the late 80s. This coincided with the arrival of triads that are very related to the tycoons and a flow in of heroin. And that the real estate and the drug money can't be separated in my analysis.
So just again, a lot of these casinos, they're not just privately run casinos. A lot of them are run by the government, correct?
These are BC Lottery Corporation casinos. And it's shocking that a government casino, again, I tell people in Las Vegas and Macau, the jurisdictions much larger, much more known for casino activity, you could not have that brazen level of drug money laundering going into those casinos. They have credit systems. They're in some ways, I'm not going to say Macau is not more connected to organized crime, because there's more organized crime in Macau, but still, you can't have the appearance of a hockey bag of 20s or whatever the relevant currency is in Macau going into the casino. They're a little bit more, I would say, smart than the officials in BC. And yes, these are casinos that my research showed once the game Baccarat and higher bet limits were introduced in 1997, that coincided very well with the arrival of the triads from Macau and Hong Kong, and the money laundering that was accepted by the local police and BC government just rose exponentially from that point. And I tell people I never stop being shocked at the brazenness of the criminality that infiltrated the casinos in BC.